Gain clear, actionable intelligence from Corelight's network defense experts. Corelight Defenders translates complex cybersecurity detection challenges into concise, practical episodes designed to support faster, smarter decision-making across modern security teams.
Welcome to Corelight Defenders. I'm Richard Bejtlich, strategist and author-in-residence at Corelight. In each episode, we explore insights from the front lines of NDR, network detection and response. Today I'm speaking with Mark Overholser, Principal Technical Marketing Engineer at Corelight. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you for having me.
The reason I asked you to be on the podcast was your involvement with Black Hat and specifically being part of the Black Hat NOC. Could you explain to people what that is and what your role is?
I always explain when people want to know more about the Black Hat Network Operations Center, the people who manage the network there generally don't rely upon the conference center to provide the network or the internet or the bandwidth or any of those sorts of things. Part and parcel of that is having a network operations center to ensure that things stay up, stay reliable, stay performant, and above all else, stay safe. You know, it's a conference that centers around teaching people offensive security tools and offensive security tactics, red team stuff. And sometimes people want to practice those things. We need to make sure that everybody stays safe in the process.
Do you guys end up contracting for your own pipe to the internet, or are you at the end of the day still coming out of some hotel?
That depends on the conference. For 2 out of the 3, yes, we contract one of the partners. So Black Hat brings in partners to supply the various things. So like Palo Alto Networks brings the firewalls, Corelight brings network detection and response equipment, Cisco brings DNS and mobile device management and some other things. Arista brings the wireless access points. And then in addition to that, for a couple of those conferences, there's a bandwidth provider. It would be somebody like Lumen or MyRepublic. But for at least one of the conferences, we do ultimately come out through the venue's internet pipe, even if we're supplying the majority of the other switching, routing, and wireless access infrastructure from the Network Operations Center.
What kind of data do you have on hand to try to make those decisions?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. People, I think, imagine that, for instance, we go in and we know like, oh, well, these are all the training servers and those are all the whatever. We do have a lot of labels for things. So, for example, the networks are all divided up based on usage. So each classroom gets their own Wi-Fi and so their own SID, their own VLAN, and a network segment, all of that sort of stuff. So we can tell, like, when somebody is doing something on the network, we can tell what classroom they're in, or if they're on the general Wi-Fi, and there are various other segments for other internal uses as well, because there's lots of different sort of pieces of the puzzle for the conference that fit together. But we don't, and we know about the infrastructure that everybody tells us they're going to bring, but for instance, trainers don't tell us about the infrastructure that they're going to bring. They could walk up one day, the day one of the training and, have 4 servers in a duffel bag and go set them up in the classroom. And we get no advance warning of that. Or they could show up and have 30 VMs all stood up in Google Cloud, for example, and we would have no knowledge of that either. So sometimes we know very specific things, like we know this is the registration server that got moved on site or something like that that's provided by the conference. But for things that trainers bring, we have essentially no advance warning. And for those, we just have to infer what something is based on the traffic. We do a lot of inference, like if we see somebody that's causing a lot of intrusion detection alerts because they look like they're attacking something, we'll zoom out and see, like, are they in a classroom? What is the topic of the classroom? Like, what is the name of the training? What is the synopsis of the training? And are other people also attacking that thing? Are other people performing the same types of attacks, maybe against different endpoints, but all of those endpoints are hosted in AWS or in GCP? Like, we can sort of piece together the puzzle by looking at all of those things to say, okay, I have a classroom. There are 15 active IPs in the classroom. 12 of them are all attacking things that are in GCP. I can say it's probably lab time. right? If all of those things started around the same time and are ongoing. But for instance, if we have a different classroom and the classroom is about like defensive things and somebody's attacking something and they're the only one that's doing it, that's probably extraneous behavior or somebody painting outside the lines, right? I have definitely gone to classrooms to get more information sometimes, right? Like we had a situation in Black Hat US where we saw what looked like a malware infection, but it was coming from a classroom that the title of the class was malware analysis. It was like advanced malware analysis. And so, we constructed a couple of different hypotheses, and one was somebody in the classroom is infected. Another was somebody intentionally infected something like a VM on their own machine to do some analysis. Another was, they were replaying some traffic as a demonstration. And right, so I just went to the classroom and I found the instructor on break and said, "Hey, this is what we're seeing. Do you know, can you help me eliminate some of these hypotheses?" And in the end, we did. We eliminated all of them except for somebody was infected, and then we found that individual and let them know. Right, and sometimes that's what we have to do because I don't have a full syllabus. I don't have lab materials. I don't have any of those things from the instructors. We just get what we need on demand.
So that in-person aspect, there's two parts of it that I'd like to talk about. So one of them is visit a physical location, potentially stand in front of a classroom and look everyone in the eye and say, "I noticed something in here that should not be happening." And possibly you see somebody fidgeting and you figure out, okay, something is going on here.
Basically, every conference, we do have to send somebody to a classroom to find an individual and pull them aside to have a conversation with them, or to address the classroom if we don't know which specific individual it is within the classroom. And usually it's just to say, "Hey, we saw this, and we want to make sure that you're aware of it in case you need to do anything." But sometimes it's, "Hey, cut it out."
The second physical aspect, you're all, I'm guessing, in one room doing this work?
Correct. Yeah, we do. We have a room. It is the Network Operations Center. And all of the individuals from all the partners that I talked about, plus Black Hat staff, we're all seated. We're all seated physically in that room, which is also a huge advantage because even though we're all communicating with each other on our private chat instance to also discuss things and to document things, I can also just get up and go find, the wireless people and ask them a question if it's truly urgent, or go flag down one of the firewall people, or just stand up and say, "Hey, everybody, I have this and I think it's a situation. Can we all take a look at this particular thing together?" And that is also a huge advantage because we can remain collaborative. It can sometimes be distracting. Having 40 people in a room all working individually and together, but also movies playing on the wall and loud music playing, it can get distracting, but it is having everybody at your fingertips really makes it easier to do this sort of deep investigation that we need to do sometimes.
Do you all have access to the same data, or are you sort of siloed based on technology?
We offer each other access to our tools. We all have access to basically everything, but we often collaborate anyway, just because we're often faster by doing it that way.
Okay, that's really good to hear. That's one of the issues I often worry about in some operations centers is people are tied to a certain tool, like they're the antivirus person and someone else is the firewall person, and it's tough to grow when you're siloed according to your technology type. It's kind of demoralizing, I think. So I think everyone should have access to everything, within privacy grounds. And so you talked about having to visit people, but do you have any other sort of response options? Like you mentioned the Wi-Fi providers. I'm guessing they could block something. They could deauthorize someone from the wireless network.
Yeah, for sure. That is definitely something that we would need to do in an extreme situation. Usually we catch them and before they get too out of hand, and we can just go have a conversation with somebody. But if need be, yeah, we can block people from the wireless. We can put in firewall rules and things like that. We'll often block external IPs that are poking at things that they're not supposed to be. It's pretty rare that we'll block an attendee without trying to make contact first.
Yeah.
But the option is always there.
Have you gotten into any running battles where you block and then they change MAC addresses or something like that?
Nobody's been that cheeky. I think we often get questions like this as well, right? Like, oh, everybody there must be really naughty and mischievous, and just because the conference is called Black Hat for. Of course, people are gonna try to do things, but in addition to it being Black Hat, they're there to learn. Usually, I mean, we call it a hostile network, but really it's an educational network that just happens to have a lot of hostile traffic because it's people teaching techniques that in other contexts would be considered hostile. And but everybody's paying money to be there, and oftentimes it's their employer that's paying them or paying for them to be there. And so, nobody really wants to get kicked out because they don't want to have to go back to their boss with their tail between their legs and say, hey, I got kicked out of Black Hat, and the X amount of money that you spent for me to go take that training, I only got the first day and a half of it, and then they sent me packing. Right. So yeah. I think we have the advantage there.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Black Hat is not cheap, but it's worth it. And if you're there to fool around and get kicked out, or to try to avoid getting kicked out by somehow thinking you're going to be clever, that's a waste of time, I think. Have you noticed any trends over the last few years? You've been doing this for many conferences now. Anything that is interesting?
I mean, one of the things that sort of surprised me was just how, I don't want to say like how frequently we see infections, because that makes it sound like it's a very frequent thing. But I came in expecting to see like an infection maybe every 3 conferences, and it seems like we see maybe 1 or 2 or 3 every conference, which I found very surprising. So, but I think that's just a numbers game. You get enough thousands of people in one place, somebody's bound to have something that's wrong with one of their machines. But what we do see, I mean, consistently, is self-hosted things that are hosted in an unsafe way. We had an attendee connect to a chat application, and by all accounts, it seemed like it was being hosted by an enterprise. It may not have been a huge enterprise, but it was self-hosted by the company, and it was used for company purposes. But all of the chats, all of the channels, all of the usernames, like absolutely everything was in the clear, including file transmissions. And we saw somebody interact with somebody else on that chat, and they transferred a file, and that file ended up containing a database. Like, it was a small database, but it was a database that had like all of the employees' information in it. And it's things like that we see over and over again, where it's, somebody hosting a mail server, and maybe they're doing it because they're trying to learn, but in the end, or maybe they're trying to do it because they want better privacy, keep their information away from big tech companies gobbling it up. But in the end, it's less safe than just having somebody else host it for them, because by not encrypting their network traffic, absolutely everything that they're doing is available to anyone listening.
Yeah. Yeah, I could imagine an era where so many people work remotely that if you were just always on somebody else's network, and even if you're at home on your network, most people don't look at it or know how to look at it or have the infrastructure to be able to do that, then it could be pretty easy to either be compromised or to, like you said, host something that is not, that's not going to survive out in the wild. So the first time somebody actually notices could be in your environment, where that's what you're there for. You're there to pay attention.
Yep, and we do, and we pay attention. And when we see things like the mail server, we saw a couple of different mail servers. We just figure out who it is and go tell them. Right. Yeah. Because it's the kindest thing we can do. Say, hey, it looks like, great job. First of all, setting up your own mail server is not trivial. And great job pulling it off. But on the other hand, you probably want to know that, all your traffic is in the clear, and we really hope you enjoy your cruise that you're going on in 2 weeks.
Do you have any advice for someone going to one of these conferences? What's the best way to prepare and to not get a visit from the NOC while you're studying?
Well, I suppose one of the things I encourage people to do is to monitor your own network traffic at home, right? If you're going to be bringing devices to the conference, if you download something like Zeek and use it to look at your own traffic on your own network, and see if there's anything there that you don't expect to see, anything that's unencrypted or anything that's leaking information that you don't want it to be, then that gives you a leg up before you come to the conference. I think a lot of people are probably expecting me to, say to give the advice that you should buy several Faraday bags on Amazon and put all your devices in those and never connect to the conference Wi-Fi. And obviously, I'm biased because I have the privilege of looking at the conference traffic, but I don't think that's in everyone's best interest necessarily. I think we do a lot to ensure that the conference network is safe, and we do a lot to look and find these things that might be wrong and alert people to them. So I think people should feel comfortable coming to a conference like Black Hat and connecting to the network. And we'll try to tell you if something's wrong.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the work you do there, Mark. I would not be concerned at all going to a Black Hat conference when you and the team are there working on keeping everyone safe and productive. So appreciate that. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Richard.
Thank you for joining us on the Network Defenders podcast, sponsored by Corelight. We will see you on the network.
You've been listening to Corelight Defenders. To stay informed with expert intelligence on today's cybersecurity challenges, please subscribe to ensure you never miss an episode. We'll see you on the network.